Australia, residents spot a swimming crocodile in Ingham's Canal.
Wildlife rangers respond to the scene and safely remove the crocodile. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. The Philippines and Japan ink a reciprocal access agreement to help maintain peace in the West Philippine Sea. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. urges neighboring Asian nations to develop a 10-year food security roadmap. A car collides into a parked SUV guarding U.S. President Joe Biden's motorcade. Israel Defense Forces discover the largest ever Hamas attack tunnel near the Gaza Strip. And Meryl Streep breaks her own record for the most Golden Globe nominations. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has expressed that the proposed Reciprocal Access Agreement, or RAA, between the Philippines and Japan will play a crucial role in maintaining peace in the West Philippine Sea amid tensions caused by China. In a bilateral meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, President Marcos highlighted that the RAA aims to enhance maritime cooperation and establish guidelines for joint training exercises between Philippine and Japanese forces. Both leaders emphasized the agreement's significance not only in terms of security, but also for disaster preparedness, alleviation, and adjustment. However, President Marcos underscored the importance of seeking new solutions to ease tensions between the Philippines and China in the West Philippine Sea. Despite the growing challenges, he asserted that the Philippines will not instigate a new conflict in the region. The president emphasized the country's commitment to maintaining peace and adhering to a rules-based order, even as China asserts territorial claims in disputed waters.
A rollback in kerosene and a hike in diesel prices are set to take effect tomorrow. Motorists are expected to pay 95 centavos less per liter on kerosene. Diesel prices will go up by 10 centavos per liter. Meanwhile, gasoline price per liter will remain stagnant for this week. According to the Department of Energy, the adjustments are due to the fundamentals of supply and demand in oil products.
The Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, has reported a significant 26.6% increase in the average retail price of unmilled rice in November. Data reveals that the average price per kilogram rose to 21.96 pesos, marking a notable surge from the 17.35 pesos recorded in the same month the previous year. Additionally, this average price also represents a 6.6% increase from the 20.60 pesos per kilogram reported in October of the current year. According to the PSA, 15 regions, aside from the National Capital Region, witnessed both annual and monthly upticks in the average farm gate prices of palay, with the highest month-on-month growth observed in BARM. Meanwhile, in response to public concerns, the Department of Agriculture reassures that the country possesses an adequate and stable rice supply that will last until next harvest season in 2024.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has called for the development of a 10-year roadmap, emphasizing climate change resilience and a people-centered approach to ensure food security in the region. President Marcos made this plea during the 50th ASEAN-Japan Commemorative Summit. He specifically said, as one of the countries most vulnerable to the negative impacts of climate change, the Philippines realizes that agriculture is intrinsically linked with climate. The Philippines' recent inclusion in the board of the Loss and Damage Fund, a climate disaster fund, adds context to this appeal. President Marcos also highlighted the evolution and progress of the ASEAN-Japan relationship over the past 50 years, emphasizing shared commitments to areas such as food security, climate action, and energy security. He underscored the importance of sustainable energy security as a dual priority, focusing on clean energy to create a low-carbon region and address climate change.
So in conclusion, I express my sincere gratitude to our Japanese partners and investors for their unwavering support and trust and continuing interest in the Philippines. Together, let us forge ahead, create a future defined by resilience, innovation, and shared prosperity.
Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri said that most of his colleagues in the upper house chamber are against any attempt to change the 1987 Constitution. In a statement, he said, and I quote, "I believe we don't need any amendment at this particular point in time." Zubiri also disclosed that he cannot promise to the president that the Senate will be back or will back charter change. The Senate president added that the Senate has prioritized foreign investments and improving the ease of doing business. On December 12, House Speaker Martin Romualdez said that the lower house chamber would tackle constitutional amendments by next year, focusing on the economic provisions of the Constitution.
Tropical cyclone Kabayan, or internationally called as Agila, has slightly weakened upon making landfall in the Mindanao region, developing into a low-pressure area. Pag-asa spots the low-pressure area in the vicinity of Impasong, Bukidnon as of 5 p.m. today. The LPA is moving northwest at 25 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, the State Weather Bureau has lifted the storm wind signals in the country.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has strongly denounced the ongoing civil war in Myanmar and called on the ASEAN member states to take decisive action to address the escalating violence. President Marcos made these remarks while attending the commemorative summit for the 50th ASEAN-Japan Friendship and Cooperation in Tokyo. He said, and I quote, "We cannot also discuss peace and stability in our region without recognizing the need to address the worsening violence and the plight of the people of Myanmar." In September, ASEAN members had previously called on Myanmar to cease attacks on civilians, but the plea was rejected by the military government, citing perceived bias and one-sided perspectives. Myanmar has been under military rule since February 2021, and during this period, reports indicate that over 3,000 anti-coup activists and civilians have lost their lives in the conflict.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. joined the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, in condemning North Korea's firing of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Marcos said North Korea's action is dangerous and provocative as it threatens and destabilizes the Indo-Pacific region and the world. China also voiced its concern, hoping all parties concerned with the Korean Peninsula will take practical action to maintain peace and stability in the region. Coming up, North Korea conducted its first intercontinental ballistic missile test in 5 months. The IDF has discovered a major tunnel in Gaza. And university presidents are facing immense pressure to resign due to anti-Semitic remarks. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Sinusubaybayan nating mga kwentuhan kasama si Miss Corina Sanchez, nominado sa isang prestihiyosong parangal. Congratulations, Corina Interviews! Nominated as Best Talk Show Asian Television Awards. Ang hatid ninyong mga diskusyon at usapan ay patuloy na nagbibigay tuwa at inspirasyon sa bawat Pilipino. You make us proud, Canet 25.
Ako po ang inyong katuwang tungkol sa usaping ito.
Nasa puso dapat ng Pilipino to love what is Filipino.
Kaya dapat ihayag ng saloobin.
Kahit gaano kasi karami yung doktor natin, ay kung may bayad din, baliwala din.
Paano makakabili ang Pilipino ng bigas?
Himayin ang hinaing.
Gaano karaming pera bang kailangan mo para maging masaya ka?
Alamin ang pwedeng gawin.
So I think the lesson is, pag may fake news, i-correct ka agad ng people concerned.
Sagutin mo agad. Mag-reality check tayo.
Check yun.
Check.
Check na check.
Double check.
Check the check tayo dyan.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. South Korea's military said that Pyongyang has fired another long-range ballistic missile. This after United States President Joe Biden's stern warning about the North Korea's use of nuclear weapons against Washington and its allies. South Korea and the U.S. have convened their second session of the Nuclear Consultative Group in Washington, discussing nuclear deterrence amid conflict with the North. Reports say the missile flew for about 20 minutes, traveling for 354 miles before it plunged to the sea. Meanwhile, South Korean officials have described the test fire as a clear violation of United Nations Security Council resolutions. Russian President Vladimir Putin promises to make Russia a sovereign, self-sufficient power in the face of the West. This in his first campaign speech before running again for president in a March election. JC Yumul has the details.
President Vladimir Putin will stand for president in March in a vote with no real opposition that is expected to prolong his rule until at least 2030. Putin has been in power since 2000. The March vote will come just over 2 years since he launched Moscow's Ukraine offensive. The offensive has prompted huge rounds of Western sanctions on Russia. Putin says Russia will be either a sovereign, self-sufficient state, or it will not be there at all. Putin has said that he will make sovereignty one of the key aims of his fifth term in Kremlin. He says Russia will only make decisions themselves without foreign tips. Putin's political opponents are either in jail or in exile. Moscow has banned criticism of its Ukraine campaign. JC Yumul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A village councillor in western Ukraine has thrown grenades during a council meeting, wounding 26 people. The attack took place at the village council headquarters of Kagetsky in the western Transcarpathian region. Police have not yet commented on a possible motive for the attack, which left 6 people in critical condition. The meeting was being live-streamed on Facebook when the incident took place. Councillors had been holding a heated discussion about their budget for the next fiscal year, as well as this year's financial results, holding a vote on whether to award a council chief a bonus. Almost 90 minutes into the meeting, the footage shows one of the village councillors shouting and storming out of the meeting room, objecting to the budget. A few minutes later, he returns and stands in front of the door. Shortly afterward, he takes several grenades out of his jacket pockets.
A car collided with a parked SUV assigned to guard the U.S. President Joe Biden's motorcade on Sunday night as he was leaving his campaign headquarters. President Biden was walking from the campaign office to his waiting armored SUV when the incident occurred. The collision involved a sedan hitting the U.S. Secret Service vehicle, which was deployed to close off intersections for the president's departure. Following the collision, the sedan attempted to proceed into a closed-off intersection. However, Secret Service personnel quickly surrounded the vehicle with weapons drawn, instructing the driver to raise their hands. President Biden, visibly surprised by the commotion, paused and looked toward the sound before being swiftly ushered into the waiting vehicle where his wife was already seated. The motorcade then proceeded to drive back to their residence.
Donald Trump has come under fire for anti-immigrant remarks he made at a campaign rally on the weekend. Critics describe his speech as fascist-like rhetoric. Thomas I. Likeness tells us more.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
After using that Nazi-era anti-immigrant slur, Trump continued with his rant.
They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world.
His remarks brought a sharp rebuke from President Joe Biden's campaign, which says the former president is parroting Adolf Hitler. A White House spokesman says the former president's comments are the opposite of everything that Americans stand for. Immigration promises to be one of the most divisive issues heading into next November's U.S. presidential election. Hard-right populist Trump previously used the same inflammatory language about migrants in comments to a conservative news site in October. But this weekend is the first time he's used it at a political rally. Trump is the overwhelming favorite to lead the Republicans into the election, but he also came under fire from one of his rivals in the race for the party's nomination. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie says Trump is becoming crazier. He adds the Republicans can't beat Biden with someone who talks that way about immigrants. Ironically, Trump's wife on Friday made a rare public appearance telling new U.S. citizens at a naturalization ceremony to be proud and embrace the opportunities that lie ahead.
Though you come from 25 different countries, your dreams and inspirations intertwine with those who came before you.
Quite the opposite of what her husband is saying on the campaign trail.
They're pouring into our country. Nobody's even looking at them. They just come in. The crime is going to be tremendous.
Thomas I. Likeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Israel Defense Forces unveiled the largest ever Hamas attack tunnel in the northern Gaza Strip, close to the Erez border crossing with Israel. The Israel military said the tunnel was around 4 kilometers long and goes down 50 meters underground. Reports said the tunnel appeared to be wide enough for vehicles to pass through. The IDF disclosed that one shaft was found 400 meters from the Erez crossing. The command noted that the tunnel has several branches and junctions, including plumbing, electricity, and communication lines. Blast doors were also installed, intended to prevent Israeli troops from entering.
The slaying of 3 Israeli hostages by Israeli soldiers has sparked protests in Tel Aviv. Demonstrators are demanding the authorities to come up with a new plan to bring home the remaining 129 hostages being held in Gaza. Rochelle Feria reports.
This is the scene in Tel Aviv as protesters gathered following the fatal shooting of 3 Israeli hostages in Gaza. They want the government to make a deal with Hamas to free those still being held. One Friday, Israeli soldiers shot the 3 men in their 20s, dead even as they carried a white flag and cried for help in Hebrew. The army says troops mistook the trio for a threat and opened fire. On Sunday, military spokesman Richard Hecht says the deaths are being investigated. He adds what the soldiers did violated the rules of engagement. The military later said a search of the building adjacent to the slayings found signs calling for help. The signs had been made using leftover food. The brother of one of the slain hostages accuses the army of abandoning him and murdering him. Rochelle Feria for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The UN's International Organization for Migration, or IOM, reported a tragic incident where around 61 migrants, including women and children, lost their lives in a shipwreck off the coast of Libya. This unfortunate event is the latest in a series of tragedies that have occurred in the Mediterranean Sea, a perilous route often undertaken by migrants seeking a better life in Europe. According to survivor accounts cited by the IOM's Libya office, the boat had departed from Zuara, a coastal city west of the capital Tripoli, with about 86 people on board. In recent years, Libya has become a predominant transit point for migrants attempting to escape war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East. The Central Europe route, which includes the Mediterranean Sea, has proven to be hazardous, resulting in a significant loss of lives, with over 2,250 people having died on this route in the current year alone.
The Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission expects China's economy to improve in 2024, saying China's prices and central government debt levels are not high. The Commission believes more favorable conditions and more opportunities will come for Beijing, since macroeconomic policies will continue to provide support for China's economic recovery. Party officials in China are also looking to shift from a post-pandemic recovery to sustained consumption growth next year. The government also targets a growth forecast of around 5%, saying it will cultivate new consumption growth areas such as smart homes, recreation and tourism, and sports events. China would also continue to monitor its battered real estate market to achieve risk prevention and market stabilization.
The South American country of Bolivia has opened its first lithium carbonate plant. The state-owned facility has been under construction for the past 5 years. Angel Mambreri has more.
Bolivian President Luis Arce says the plant will produce more than 15,000 tons of lithium carbonate a year. The white metal is a key component of batteries used to power electric vehicles. Demand for the substance is growing. Bolivia has more than half the world's lithium resources, with estimated reserves of 23 million tons. Last week, it signed a $450 million deal with Russia to produce battery and electric vehicle components. Bolivia projects lithium exports of $5 billion next year. That outstrips its key natural gas industry, which has been hit hard by declining investments. Angel Mambreri for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Blue Origin's big boss Jeff Bezos says he loves the idea of friendship with SpaceX and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. The two billionaires are known for their business rivalry in the space exploration business. Musk also criticized the Amazon founder Bezos in the past. But in an interview with podcaster Lex Friedman, Bezos admits that he and Musk are like-minded. Bezos also lauds Musk's capability as a leader.
I don't really know Elon very well. I know his public persona, but I also know you can't know anyone by their public persona. It's impossible. I mean, you may think you do, but I guarantee you don't. So I don't really know. You know Elon way better than I do, Lex. But in terms of his judging by the results, he must be a very capable leader. There's no way you could have, Tesla and SpaceX without being a capable leader. It's impossible.
Yeah, I hope you guys hang out sometimes, shake hands, and sort of have a kind of friendship that would inspire just the entirety of humanity. Because what you're doing is like one of the big, grand challenges ahead for humanity.
Well, I agree with you. And I think in a lot of these endeavors, we're very like-minded.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm not saying we're identical, but I think we're very like-minded. And so I love that idea.
Sellafield Chief Executive Yuan Hutton hit back at claims that computer system Cumbria have been hacked. Sellafield's facility on the Cumbrian coast is widely regarded as Western Europe's most hazardous nuclear site. It is also home to the UK's civil plutonium stockpile, with 140 tons of the material stored there. But Hutton said there was no evidence that cyber groups linked to Russia and China targeted the IT networks of Sellafield's. The Sellafield boss also refuted allegations of serious safety failings at its nuclear plant. Hutton said the Sellafield site has a 24/7 staffed cybersecurity operations center.
NASDAQ Global Head of Listings Karen Snow said the trend of UK companies going to New York to raise funds will continue. Snow helped convince Cambridge-based chip designer ARM Holdings to float on NASDAQ. ARM Holdings raised $4.87 billion on NASDAQ in September. The NASDAQ also raised $13 billion in 2023, while the London Stock Exchange raised only $972 million. Snow said NASDAQ is now conversing with UK companies about listing in the United States. Despite having a significant gap between NASDAQ and London Stock Exchange, data from Dialogic shows that this year is the first time the London Stock Exchange has failed to hit the $1 billion mark. Up next, a streak of violence plagues Mexico. Colombian rebels pledge to change their ways. And Elon Musk and Neuralink has come under fire after being linked to the deaths of test subjects. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Expose, viral at exclusive. Mga reklamo at problema na napapanood at na-post sa social media. Ngayon, aaksyonan na rin ng Responde. Kaya kung meron po kayong nais na isumbong, mag-text sa 0915-415-1035 o mag-email sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25TV. Walang problema na hindi mabibigyan po ng solusyon. Basta't may agad na Responde. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Dito lamang sa Net25.
Support for the presidents of Harvard, the University of Pennsylvania, and MIT eroded quickly after they seemed to evade what seemed like a rather simple question during a contentious congressional hearing asking would they discipline students calling for the genocide of Jews. Their replies to that question and others during a 4-hour hearing drew infuriating responses. Myla Simbulan for the report.
We are here at the University of Pennsylvania, where numerous organizations stage protests over various calls for support and dissent for the Israel-Hamas war. A congressional hearing was even called to address the incidents in which student groups called for an uprising or intifada. The hearing comes as various calls for an intifada spurred in various demonstrations within the universities brought on by Israel's occupation of Gaza. Democratic Governor of Pennsylvania Josh Shapiro said he found the responses by Penn President Elizabeth McGill unacceptable. Even the liberal academic Lawrence Tribe agreed with Republican Representative of New York, Elise Stefanik, who sharply questioned Harvard's president, Claudine Gay. The Harvard law professor wrote on X, Claudine Gay's hesitant, formulaic, and bizarrely evasive answers were deeply troubling to me and many of my colleagues, students, and friends. In their opening remarks and throughout the hearing, Dr. Gay, Ms. McGill, and Sally Kornbluth of MIT all said they were appalled by anti-Semitism and taking action against it on campus. When asked whether they supported the right of Israel to exist, they answered yes, without equivocation. But on the question of disciplining students for statements about genocide, they tried to give lawyerly responses to a tricky question involving free speech, which supporters of academic freedom said were legally correct. But to many Jewish students, alumni, and donors who had watched campus pro-Palestinian protests with trepidation and fear, the statements by the university presidents failed to meet the political moment by not speaking clearly and forcefully against anti-Semitism. University sources speaking on background said that efforts were underway to hold a board meeting by phone this week. The university did not respond immediately to a request for comment. Much of the criticism landed heavily on McGill's because of an extended back and forth with Representative Stefanik. Democrat Senator of Pennsylvania John Fetterman described the testimony a significant failure. In response on Wednesday, Democrat Senator Bob Casey did not mince words. Casey said President McGill's comments were offensive, but equally offensive what she didn't say. He added the right to respect is fundamental, but calling for the genocide of Jews is anti-Semitic and harassment. Full stop. By Wednesday afternoon, a petition calling for Ms. McGill's resignation grew to more than 3,000 signatures. Chief of Apollo Global Management and Board Chair of the Wharton School of Business at Penn, Mark Rowan, asked the Board of Trustees to rescind the support for Ms. McGill. By the evening, Ms. McGill apologized for her testimony. She then tendered her resignation. Simbulan for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A violent storm has pummeled Argentina and Uruguay, leaving more than a dozen people dead. The storms packed fierce winds and dropped heavy rain, killing at least 16 people in Argentina and 2 others in neighboring Uruguay. The local city council described the storm's impact as catastrophic, reporting multiple injuries, some of which were extremely severe. Mayor Federico Susbielias expressed condolences to the families of the deceased and declared a 72-hour period of mourning in the city. He emphasized the importance of safety, urging citizens to stay home as the city remains in an emergency situation with risks including electrical hazards, falling trees, and structures. For other details, here's Percy Parlate.
The deadly storm hit cities in Argentina and Uruguay along the Atlantic coast Saturday night. The worst damage appears to have been done in the Argentine city of Bahia Blanca. Winds clocked at up to 150 kilometers an hour caused the roof of a sports facility to collapse during a roller skating competition, killing at least 13 people. In Buenos Aires, strong winds downed hundreds of trees in the Argentine capital and damaged aircraft and the terminal at one of the city's airports. Heavy rain fell Sunday morning and local media reported power outages. The storm damaged the Floralis Henrica, a famous flower sculpture in the city. 6 petals fell to the ground. In Uruguay, 2 people died early Sunday as winds knocked down trees and tore the roofs off of homes.
Un grave problema, y mayormente para la gente de Bahía Blanca, que hay eventos que hay que suspenderlo. No puede ser que sabiendo que va a haber un problema, no lo siguen. Es mejor prevenir que curar, como dice el dicho.
Percival Parlate for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A holiday party in central Mexico turned deadly when half a dozen gunmen opened fire on revelers. Authorities say at least 12 people have been killed and another dozen wounded. Arlene Ocampo reports.
The violence occurred early Sunday in the town of Salvatierra in the state of Guanajuato. The party was being held at a hacienda that can be rented out for events. One partygoer says 6 men with long guns entered the venue and began circulating around the 100 or so young people gathered at the event. When the men were asked who they were, they started shooting. In a separate incident late Saturday, about 50 kilometers away, 4 men died after attackers opened fire on a barbershop. Guanajuato is one of the most violent states in Mexico, due in large part to the presence and activity of criminal gangs, including a pair of feuding drug cartels. It topped the list of states with the most homicides in Mexico this year, with more than 3,000 so far. Arlene Ocampo from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
At least 8 people were killed and another 84 have been injured after a blast at an oil terminal in Guinea's capital of Conakry. The explosion at the West African nation's main oil terminal rocked the Kaloum administrative district in downtown Conakry, blowing out the windows of several nearby homes and forcing hundreds to flee. A huge fire and billowing black smoke were seen from miles away as firefighters rushed to the area, while several tanker trucks left the depot, escorted by soldiers and police. Guinea is not an oil producer and has no oil refining capacity. It imports refined products, which are mostly stored in the Kaloum terminal and distributed via trucks across the country. The extent of the damage to the terminal is unclear for now.
In Spain, 2 trains carrying 253 passengers collided sideways, injuring 13. The emergency services added among the injured, 3 were children. Firefighters evacuated the affected passengers and took them to El Chorro station. Authorities have yet to determine the reason of the mishap.
Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa says his country will kick out about 1,500 foreign inmates. Noboa says those serving a prison sentence of 5 years or more will be expelled. Kimi Oria tells us more.
President Daniel Noboa says the foreign prisoner expulsions are part of the government's plan to fight the growing violence from drug trafficking and criminal gangs. He says most of those being thrown out are from Colombia, Peru, and Venezuela. Noboa says all have committed serious crimes. Long a peaceful haven between major cocaine exporters Colombia and Peru, Ecuador has seen violence explode in recent years. Enemy gangs with links to Mexican and Colombian cartels are engaged in turf wars. The Ecuadorian Observatory of Organized Crime says drug violence has led to some 3,600 murders so far this year. Kimi Oria for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In Colombia, a rebel group that caused an uproar by abducting the father of a national football star pledges to stop kidnappings for ransom. Julian Bukayan has the details.
The pledge by Colombia's National Liberation Army, or ELN, has been announced in a joint statement with the government of President Gustavo Petro. This as a 5th round of peace negotiations concluded in Mexico City. The talks aim to end 6 decades of fighting between Bogota and one of the last active leftist rebel armies in the country. Bogota has been torn by decades of fighting involving guerrillas, right-wing paramilitary groups, and drug gangs. Head of the government delegation to the talks, Vera Grabe, says ELN's pledge to halt abductions for money is critical for peace in Colombia. Kidnapping for ransom is a common practice in years of conflict. The negotiations followed the recent kidnapping by the ELN of the father of Liverpool footballer Luis Diaz. This has threatened to upend a delicate ceasefire. Diaz has been released. Sunday's statement said the truce will continue. The ceasefire is scheduled to conclude on January 29. Both sides, however, say they envision extending it. Julian Bukayan from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In Canada, qualifying low to middle income families may now apply for what is described as the country's most transformative dental health program yet. Yolanda Aspiras has that story.
Canada's federal government unveils what is possibly their largest social program. The Canada Dental Benefit aims to help lower dental costs for low and middle income families who cannot afford private health insurance. Of Applications for this benefit start next week, starting with seniors over 87 years old. As early as May next year, the first claims under this benefit will likely be processed. The federal government says that this dental health benefit will be available to all qualifying Canadians by 2025. This benefit plan is expected to cost $15 billion over the first 5 years. Canadian residents earning income under $90,000 per year who don't have private insurance and have filed their income taxes may qualify for this benefit. The plan covers preventive teeth cleanings, treatments, and removable dentures. Canada's Minister of Health, Mark Holland, calls this a transformative milestone for Canada, as the plan aims to cover 9 million Canadians getting their essential oral health care. In Toronto, Ontario, Yolanda Aspiras for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
An animal welfare advocacy group is urging the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to investigate whether Elon Musk is misleading Neuralink investors regarding the health of his monkey test subjects. Elijah Villanueva has the data.
An animal welfare advocacy group is urging the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to look into allegations of whether Elon Musk's statements about the health of primates that are test subjects of his brain chip company Neuralink are misleading investors. In Musk's statements at the New York Times Dealbook Summit, he announced that the gruesome deaths of monkeys who died after implant surgeries at Neuralink were selected for experimentation because they were already close to death. But a letter sent by an animal rights advocacy and research group called the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine to federal regulators claims that Musk's statements were inaccurate and amount to what they say is a possible securities fraud. This is the third letter sent by the group to the SEC demanding an investigation into Musk's statements about Neuralink's test subjects. The monkeys are being used by Neuralink to develop brain chip implants, which will soon be used in human trials. Musk first acknowledged the deaths of the primates on September 10th in a reply to a user on his social networking app X, formerly Twitter, but denied that any of the deaths were a result of Neuralink implants and said the researchers had taken extra care to select subjects who were already terminal. Elijah Villanueva for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Cadillac is releasing the name and a few images of its next electric vehicle, the mid-size Vistic SUV, which the automaker expects to slot in between the Lyriq and Escalade IQ in terms of size and price. The three-row SUV is expected to hit dealerships sometime in 2025 as a model year 2026 vehicle. It will also join the entry-level Optiq and Cadillac's growing lineup of zero-emission vehicles. Cadillac isn't revealing any details about the Vistic aside from the name and its placement in the lineup. Like the other models, the Vistic will be built on GM's Ultium battery platform, which is intended to be flexible and multifaceted with the goal of serving a variety of vehicle types and shapes. As a three-row SUV, the Vistic will be competing with other mid to full-size SUVs like the Tesla Model X, the Rivian R1s, and the upcoming Volvo X90.
Artificial rain has been used for the first time in Pakistan in a bid to combat hazardous levels of smog in the city of Lahore. Lahore suffers from toxic smog that chokes the lungs of the city's 11 million residents during the winter season. Mark Castillo has the details.
These planes are equipped with cloud seeding equipment. Flying over 10 areas of the Pakistani city, they release a mixture of salts into clouds. The salt crystals cause condensation to form as rain. Experts say even moderate rain can reduce pollution as the moisture washes pollutants out of the atmosphere. The technology is not new. Cloud seeding has been carried out in the United States, China, and India. Air pollution has worsened in Pakistan in recent years. A mixture of low-grade diesel fumes, smoke from seasonal crop burn-off, and colder winter temperatures create stagnant clouds of smog. Breathing the poisonous air has catastrophic health consequences, such as respiratory diseases, strokes, heart disease, and lung cancer. Mark Castillo from Batanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Russia has launched its second meteorological satellite dubbed Arktika-M into orbit through its Soyuz 2.1B rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The satellite is said to monitor the Earth's surface as well as Arctic seas around the clock. Russia's space agency Roscosmos said that the Arktika-M will establish capable retransmitting signals from radio beacons of the International Distress Alert Detection System called Cosmosat. Roscosmos disclosed that the first Arktika-M satellite has also launched from Baikonur Cosmodrome on February 28, 2021. The Lavochkin Design Bureau said that the series would expand to 4 spacecraft. The agency added that the Arktika-M constellation is expected to be fully deployed by the year 2031.
Coming right up, Crocs run amok in Australia after Cyclone Jasper floods their roads. Find out who's in the running to be the NBA MVP. And Meryl Streep breaks her own Golden Globes record. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Pasiglahin ang araw ng linggo. Kayo'y maaantig.
Huwag mo ubusin ang luha mo sa wala dito.
Mapapaisip.
What are we gonna do?
Matatawa.
Why so much food? Even no money, no honey. We make utang-utang.
Mapapahanga. At mapapainda. Kasama si The King, ang nag-iisang comedy king Dolphy.
Ano pangalan mo? Big Po. Big Po. Ano mo si Fernando po?
Tito Vic and Joey.
Mahirap ikwento, Vicky. Mahabang istorya.
At marami pang artista na kinagigiliwan noon magpahanggang ngayon. Cine Throwback. Tuwing Linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali sa Net 25.
In celebration of National Chocolate-Covered Anything Day, here are some ideas on how to prepare and enjoy food covered with roasted and ground cacao. Here's Jane Kathleen Gregorio with Chef Melissa Gise.
Whether you like to dip it, spread it, coat it, or drizzle it, there are multiple ways to enjoy National Chocolate-Covered Anything Day. Eagle News caught up with Melissa Geis, a corporate chef of over 13 years, as she uncovered the hot topic of covering things with chocolate.
People, when they hear chocolate, they get happy. Chocolate-covered desserts are a way to add richness and complexity to any dessert. They're the perfect way to dress up a meal. When you add chocolate, you can use it on cakes, cookies, candies, fruit, or you can freeze it. I love chocolate-covered gummies. It's just amazing. I I buy them. I usually don't make them. The weirdest combinations I've seen, and I've seen people eat, the very weirdest is chocolate covered crickets. They sell them in Nevada on the highway. Something that is actually good, but you wouldn't expect, is dark chocolate covered bacon. And it's salty and sweet at the same time, and it's really good. My favorite though is to use white chocolate. It's not milk, but it lacks the bitterness. It's almost like sweet butter.
According to Chef Melissa, you don't have to be a chef in order to master the art of melting chocolate.
For me, my preferred way is called the double boiler method. You take one pot and you put it on the stove or your heating element, and you put water, and then you fit the bowl in the pot so it creates a seal, and you turn on the heat, and the water should create steam. You put your chocolate in and you stir it, scraping the bowl and turning it over until it's completely melted. The second method you can use is the microwave, where you can put it in a heat-safe bowl, go 10 seconds at a time, open it up, scrape the sides of the bowl with a spatula. If it's not completely melted, do 5 more seconds. Do it in increments. As soon as you see it melted, that's good enough. It doesn't need to be super hot. Once you hit a certain temperature for chocolate, it becomes unusable, so be careful with that. So you can just take things that are in your pantry to make nice chocolate covered treats as an extra special touch to whatever you have, and it becomes a completely new dish. I have some old pretzel sticks in the pantry. You know, they're just kind of salty, but you want salty and sweet. Melt your chocolate and throw the pretzel sticks in there. If you have some bananas that you might have a hard time to finish, dip the bananas in chocolate. Everybody will come after it. Or you could also do strawberries and also graham crackers. And to make it even more special, if you have some sprinkles, while the chocolate's still slightly melted, just sprinkle it and it becomes nicer.
Whether you're hosting a party or just wanting to give your plain snacks a fancy makeover, chocolate-covered treats are a great way to sweeten someone's day. In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A crocodile was seen swimming in a northern Australian town's drain as floodwaters surged in the aftermath of Cyclone Jasper. Local media reports say that a scaled 2.8 meters long crocodile was swimming around Ingham. Wildlife rangers responded to the scene and safely removed the crocodile. The crocodile will be released back into the wild after the floodwaters ease. Queensland's new Premier Stephen Miles declared a serious weather emergency as hundreds of millimeters of rainfall have fallen in the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, the city of Cairns has recorded more than 2 meters of rainfall. This made floods to have inundated Cairns Airport as several rivers overflowed, submerging planes on the runway. Stephen Curry had an uneventful night against the Trailblazers as he struggled to knock down a single three-pointer in his 31-minute on-court performance, putting an end to his historic streak of 268 games with a three. Vin Pasqua has the score.
Golden State Warriors guard Stephen Curry had a night to forget against the Portland Trail Blazers, with the 35-year-old seen struggling despite the Warriors picking up a 118-114 win, recording a season-low 7 points. Curry made just 2 field goals in the game and was 0 for 8 from three-point range. The last time he didn't make a 3-point field goal in a game was back in November 8, 2018 in a game against the Bucks. Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins carried the offensive load during Curry's down night, combining for 53 points. It was the first time since October 2012 that Curry played more than 30 minutes in a game and scored 7 or fewer points. Entering Sunday's tilt against Portland, he made 3 or more threes in all but one game this season. It had been more than 5 years since Curry failed to register a single three-pointer in a game, but his NBA record streak came to an abrupt end on Sunday night. While in the NBA MVP rankings, things are heating up between the reigning MVP and the Joker right now. The reigning MVP Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers followed up last year's stellar campaign by increasing his averages in points, rebounds, and assists, standing at 33.8, 11.5, and 6.4 respectively. The assist total is particularly impressive. With James Harden gone, Joel Embiid has taken on more of a playmaking responsibility and is striving without a massive spike in turnovers. We know Nikola Jokic is Embiid's main competition for this award. But as per analysts, the Sixers have a better offense with Embiid on the floor than the Nuggets do with Jokic so far this season. But right behind him is Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. The two-time Kia MVP became the first player in NBA history to register at least 10 triple-doubles in 7 consecutive seasons, averaging 27.2 points, 12.7 rebounds, and 9.4 assists per game. The Joker has been as impactful as ever, even if his efficiency is down after a shocking 2-game slump earlier this month. It's really hard to separate Jokic and Embiid at this point. Their teams are very close in the standings. Both have been phenomenal. Embiid's had the Harden drama, while Jokic has had to deal with Jamal Murray's hamstring injury. Trailing behind them, however, are two other foreign players in Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo. No one knows how the season will pan out, but one thing is for sure, this season is going down to the wire, with the MVP race being must-see TV for fans worldwide. Reporting for Sports, Vin Pascua for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Meryl Streep has broken her own record as the most nominated actor in Golden Globes history. Stephanie Mayo has the scoop.
Right, girls? Meryl Streep has broken the record for having the most nominations in the history of the Golden Globes. The 74-year-old actress brought the total number of her Globes nominations to 33 after she was nominated for Best Performance by a Supporting Female Actor for her role in Hulu's Only Murders in the Building. Streep also broke her own record. According to the Globe's official website, she set the record as the most nominated actor of all time when she received her 30th nomination for Florence Foster Jenkins in 2013. She is also the actor with the most all-time wins at the Globes, having won 9 total. At the upcoming 2024 Golden Globes, Streep is nominated alongside Elizabeth Debicki for The Crown, Abby Elliott for The Bear, Christina Ricci for Yellow Jackets, J. Smith Cameron for Succession, and Hannah Waddingham for Ted Lasso. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
It's the first day of the work week again. Here's a quote from American TV personality Oprah Winfrey. On my own, I will just create, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll create something else. I don't have any limitations on what I think I could do or be.
Love Oprah and love how she talks about not having any limitations.
Right.
That's something we need to remind ourselves of, especially because sometimes society puts limitations on us.
Exactly.
Just got to break out of that.
Exactly. And also, don't be frustrated if you fail the first time or the second time, because there's always another time to make a stab at it.
Get back up. You got this.
Yes.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Elago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.